Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to do a deep dive into something that you might not expect to be controversial.
Oh.
The Super Bowl pregame ceremonies.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to unpack why Lift Every Voice and Sing, often called the Black National Anthem, is stirring up strong reactions just by being performed alongside the U.S. National Anthem.
It is interesting how something meant to be celebratory can reveal those deeper tensions,
Yeah, absolutely. And to understand what's going on, we need to look at what people are saying.
Okay.
We've got these heated discussions happening on social media.
Right.
And even Representative Lauren Boebert weighed in, stating firmly that there's only one national anthem.
Oh, wow.
So, you can see how this is touching a nerve for some people.
Yeah, that reaction really speaks to a view that recognizing another anthem somehow diminishes or threatens the traditional one, right?
Yeah.
It's tapping into, a sense of national identity and anxieties around change.
Sure. Exactly. But on the other side, we have viewpoints like Gerald Early's.
Okay.
He emphasizes that Lift Every Voice and Sing is about Black affirmation, perseverance, and inspiration. He sees it as celebrating a community's strength and not as a challenge to the existing national anthem.
Early's view is so crucial because it highlights what the song represents to many people, a history of resilience and hope within the Black community.
Yes.
It's a symbol of identity and this ongoing pursuit of equality.
Right, and to really grasp why this is causing such a stir, we need to understand the history behind the song.
Okay.
It goes all the way back to 1900 when James Weldon Johnson, a prominent civil rights activist, originally wrote it as a poem. Then his brother, J. Rosman Volotin, later set it to music.
That historical significance is key, I think.
Yes.
It helps us to understand why the NAACP eventually adopted the song as the Black National Anthem and why its inclusion in the Super Bowl is so meaningful to many Black Americans.
Yeah, you can see why it's more than just a song, right? It's a symbol deeply rooted in history and the struggle for civil rights.
And this year's controversy isn't happening in a vacuum.
Right.
It's playing out against a backdrop of broader societal shifts,
Okay.
particularly the pushback against DEI initiatives.
DEI. Can you explain what that is for those who might not be familiar?
Sure. DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
Okay.
It encompasses efforts to create more representative and inclusive environments across various sectors.
Got it.
And as you can imagine, it's become a hot-button issue lately.
It seems like this debate over the song is like a reflection of these larger tensions playing out on a national stage.
Exactly. And the timing is significant.
Okay.
This is the 5th consecutive Super Bowl to feature Lift Every Voice and Sing,
Wow.
which is a trend towards inclusivity.
Yes.
Yet this is happening as figures like Donald Trump, who will be attending the Super Bowl,
Okay.
actively work to dismantle DEI programs.
So on one hand, you have the NFL showcasing this song for the 5th time, seemingly embracing inclusivity. But on the other hand, you have a prominent figure like Trump who represents opposition to those very ideals.
Right.
What do you make of that juxtaposition?
It speaks to the polarization that we are seeing in American society, where even something like a football game can become this battleground for these differing ideologies.
Yeah.
It forces us to ask, what does it really mean to be American? Whose story gets told? Who gets to be seen as fully American?
Heavy stuff.
Yeah.
It's definitely making people think and talk.
Right.
And speaking of which, we have a really interesting perspective from Ken Knuckles. He's a music teacher who has been teaching Lift Every Voice and Sing to his students for over 25 years.
Wow.
He talks about how his students sing the song with such pride and how deeply the lyrics resonate with them.
Knuckles' experience really highlights the emotional power of the song, especially for young people.
Yes.
It goes beyond just a performance. It becomes a source of inspiration and affirmation.
I see.
He talks about the song's message of achievement and resilience in the face of adversity.
It's incredibly moving to hear how much it means to them. It makes you wonder what goes through someone's mind when they have this negative reaction to a song about unity and perseverance.
You've hit on a crucial point there.
Yeah.
It raises the question of empathy and perspective.
Right.
Are we willing to listen to and understand viewpoints that are different from our own, even if they make us uncomfortable?
Especially when it comes to something like this song, which holds so much meaning for so many people.
Exactly.
And speaking of powerful perspectives, we have some insight from Ledisi,
Okay.
the Grammy-winning artist who will be performing Lift Every Voice and Sing this year.
That's right. And her words are incredibly moving.
They are.
She speaks about feeling aligned with greatness,
Mm.
representing the past, present, and future, and carrying the weight of hope and representation.
It's clear she sees this performance as more than just entertainment, right?
Yes.
She's carrying a legacy.
Absolutely. The significance of this moment is amplified by the fact that she's performing on such a massive stage as the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's a recognition of a history that is often marginalized and a symbol of hope for a more inclusive future.
It really makes you think about the power of representation and visibility, especially on a platform as big as the Super Bowl.
Right.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the NFL's role in all of this.
Okay.
It's interesting that they've decided to move away from the end racism end zone stencils they used in previous years, opting for choose love instead. What do you make of that shift in messaging?
Yeah, it suggests a move towards a message that is maybe less explicitly focused on social justice and more universally appealing.
Right.
It could reflect an attempt to, avoid alienating certain segments of their fan base.
As Gerald really pointed out, there's always the risk of alienating fans who are looking to sports as an escape from the political and social issues of the day.
Right, they just want to enjoy the game.
Yeah, but this idea of escaping from politics, it's something that really stood out to me as we prepped for this deep dive.
Okay.
If a song about unity and resilience sparks these strong negative reactions, what does that say about our ability as a society to confront these uncomfortable truths?
That's a powerful question.
Yeah.
And it brings us to a key point, really.
Okay.
If the inclusion of Lift Every Voice and Sing feels intrusive to some, disrupting their expectation of just pure entertainment, it suggests a resistance to engaging with these complex issues. Real progress often requires us to step outside our comfort zones and grapple with perspectives that challenge our assumptions.
It's like we're being asked to expand our understanding of what it means to be American, to acknowledge the richness and complexity of our shared history.
Exactly.
But sometimes that requires facing the parts that are painful or challenging.
Precisely. And that process of expanding our understanding can be messy
and
uncomfortable, but it's essential for a more inclusive and equitable society.
It seems like we are at a crossroads.
Yeah.
Do we hold on to this singular, maybe even outdated notion of national identity? Or do we embrace a more multifaceted and inclusive vision that acknowledges and celebrates our diverse heritage?
And that question goes beyond just sports and music.
Yes, right.
It permeates every aspect of our society. It's about representation, about who gets to tell their story and who gets to be seen as fully American.
These are the kinds of conversations we need to be having to move forward in a meaningful way.
Right.
It's definitely a lot to unpack. You mentioned earlier that Donald Trump will be attending the Super Bowl. And has been very vocal about his opposition to DEI programs.
Yes.
This contrasts sharply with NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell's continued support for DEI initiatives. How do you interpret that, knowing they'll both be present at such a major event?
It's a stark contrast. And it speaks to the polarization that we're seeing play out in American society today. Even a football game becomes a space where these ideologies clash. It makes you wonder, how can the NFL, an organization with such a diverse fan base, navigate these tensions?
And it's not just about the fans.
Right.
Think about the players. We were looking at some stats, and it's pretty striking. Black players make up 53% of the NFL.
Wow.
The league was integrated way back in 1946, yet we still see a lack of black coaches in many franchises.
That discrepancy is incredibly telling.
Yeah,
Despite decades of integration, those disparities in leadership positions point to deeper systemic issues both within the sport and in society at large.
It makes you think about Colin Kaepernick and the backlash he faced almost a decade ago for kneeling during the national anthem to protest police brutality.
You're right to bring that up, the resistance to Lift Every Voice and Sing, and the anger directed at Kaepernick's protest share this common thread.
Okay.
They both represent a discomfort with acknowledging and addressing racial injustice in America.
And it often feels like any attempt to raise these issues, especially in the world of sports and entertainment, is met with resistance from some... Remember the backlash against the end racism message, too? There's a segment of society that pushes back hard against these social justice messages.
That pushback manifests in many ways. Dismissive comments, attempts to discredit those speaking out, and accusations of playing the race card.
Right.
This reminds us that what we're seeing with Lift Every Voice and Sing is not an isolated incident.
I see.
It's part of a larger pattern of resistance to messages of social justice and racial equality, especially when they challenge the status quo or make people uncomfortable.
It's like some people want to keep these conversations out of sports altogether, while others see these platforms as this crucial way to raise awareness and promote change.
That's the tension, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where do these conversations belong? And whose comfort are we prioritizing?
We were talking about the NFL's decision to shift from end racism to choose love as their end zone message.
Right.
I wonder if that reflects this desire to move away from messages that might be perceived as too political or controversial.
It's possible it could be an attempt to appeal to a broader audience with a message that feels less divisive,
Right.
but it also raises questions about the effectiveness of these broad, feel-good messages.
Yeah. Does a message like choose love actually move the needle on these complex issues like racial justice?
Right.
Or does it simply provide a veneer of progress without addressing the deeper systemic problems?
That's a good question, and it highlights the challenge of navigating these issues in such a polarized climate.
Yeah.
There's this fear of being too political, of
Yeah.
potentially alienating fans or sponsors.
But is it really political to advocate for racial justice and equality? Shouldn't those be values that we all strive for?
You're hitting on something important.
Okay.
By labeling these issues as political, it can become this way to dismiss or silence them,
Right.
to maintain the status quo and avoid uncomfortable truths, you know.
And that disengagement only serves to perpetuate the very systems of inequality that we say we want to dismantle.
It's exactly. The real challenge lies in moving beyond these simplified frameworks and fostering a culture where these nuanced and challenging conversations can occur without that fear of judgment or backlash.
That's the goal, isn't it?
Mhm.
To engage in dialogue, even when there are disagreements, and strive for a more just and equitable society.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ultimately, these conversations are about who we are as a society and the kind of future that we envision.
And that brings us back to the heart of this deep dive.
Yeah.
Lift Every Voice and Sing has ignited this cultural debate, compelling us to confront these uncomfortable questions about race identity and what it truly means to be American.
Yeah, it really has become a focal point, hasn't it? And the Super Bowl, with its massive audience and cultural weight, is such a powerful platform for these issues to be raised and debated.
It's definitely sparked a dialogue. You know, whether people agree with the song's inclusion or not, they're talking about it, they're thinking about it. And that's a crucial first step.
Yeah, even when it's uncomfortable or challenging, that dialogue can be so important for progress.
It pushes us to examine our own biases, listen to different viewpoints, and engage with the complexities of history and identity.
It's a good reminder that these issues aren't just something we discuss, in classrooms or political debates.
Yeah.
They're interwoven into our daily lives, including our leisure activities.
This whole conversation has me thinking about the power of sports and entertainment to spark change. It might not be comfortable for everyone, but bringing these conversations into spaces like sporting events shows that they are a part of who we are as a nation.
Bringing those conversations into these unexpected places makes them harder to ignore. It forces us to confront them head on.
So as we all get ready to watch the Super Bowl this weekend, it's not just about the game itself.
Right.
It's about what the game represents, the conversations it sparks, and the opportunity it provides for reflection and growth. It makes you think, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And leads us to some important questions for you to consider as you watch the game.
Okay.
Are you open to expanding your understanding of what it means to be American? Are you willing to embrace discomfort as part of the journey toward a more just and equitable society?
Yeah.
And how does this controversy shape your view of the role of sports and entertainment in addressing these important issues?
Those are some powerful questions for all of us to ponder. And as you said, they extend far beyond the realm of football. This has been an incredibly thought-provoking deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
It's always a pleasure to explore these complex topics with you. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep those conversations going.